Storytelling with the Storyteller. This is Storytelling presented by Active. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Unity Plaza Event Center. This is a meeting between intellectuals. This is a roundtable discussion. Today we're going to be talking about how hurt people hurt people. And generally, so this is going to be abuse. Now, there's lots of topics of abuse. There's lots of ways that somebody can be abused. A few of them is physical, domestic, sexual, financial, physiological, organizational, etc. But today we're going to focus on the type of abuses that I have experienced in my life. I've experienced just about all of them, but the ones that stand out to me that totally changed the trajectory of my life was spiritual abuse. Abuse that I noticed that I got from friendships, not necessarily with my spouse, but just friends, my friend girls or associates. I've experienced that type of abuse, and self-abuse. For a very, very, very long time, I didn't realize I was abusing myself. So we're going to talk about these three topics today. We're going to hit on those. We have a special intellectual guest. This is one of my dear good friends. I've been knowing this brother a very long time. One of the smartest brothers I do know, Mr. Branden Johnson, one of our community leaders, activists, down-to-earth brother, a.k.a. Guru, a.k.a. King of Gumbo. We got Guru here. Okay, so Guru, we're going to just simply be talking about abuse. And like I said, hurt people hurt people. And so I want to start out with spiritual abuse. For me, when I first experienced spiritual abuse, I was kicked out of the Sunday church because I had started keeping the Sabbath. And this was shortly after I found Jesus or found God or whatever. And so I was going to church. And so I had went into church one day and I said, well, if the Sabbath is on this particular day as opposed to this particular day, then why didn't this happen or whatever? And so the pastor, they, what do you call it when they fast? They did a 40-day fast on me, man. And so when I came back in 40 days and the answer for me was still the same and it hadn't changed to the answer that they wanted, I was kicked out of that church. Yeah, I was kicked out of that church. They gave me a phone call at the house, told me, do not come back to the church. So that happened with me in one church. So a couple of years later, I was in the Seventh-day Adventist church, and I had a question about, the Seventh-day Adventists have a belief where they thought in a certain time of year, I think it might have been 1812 or something. Anyway, they thought it was going to be the end of the world and Jesus was coming back and all of the followers sold all their stuff. And so I said, well, if that didn't happen, I asked the question in church. I said, well, that didn't happen. So does that mean everything Ellen G. White, because she's the one that predicted it. Ellen G. White is a very, very good author. Y'all check her out. A lot of her books have been banned out of the United States. But Ellen G. White, I said, well, if Ellen G. White said that and it didn't happen, maybe everything Ellen G. White said was false. And so a couple of weeks later, that kind of started a ruckus in the church. It might have been about 26, 27 people in the church. So everybody started researching. Well, it wouldn't die down, and more questions started forming from that. And then they pulled me in the hallway, and I was told not to come back to that church. And so for me, the spiritual abuse is kind of changed the trajectory of my life, because I thought, now that's, pretty mean and ugly and hurtful on both ends, because the definition of abuse is the improper usage or treatment of a thing, often to unfairly or improperly gain benefit. And so for me, it was like, well, if I don't see it your way, then it's no way. And so that was one of the things that kind of changed me. Have you ever experienced, or can you give me an enlightened opinion on your experience with spiritual abuse, if you've experienced it?
I actually had to whoop a deacon in church.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of the stories that, it was an experience I had. When I was young, I just went to church because if I didn't go, I wouldn't be able to play.
Yeah.
And I mostly had to go to Sunday school. But a few years ago here in East Texas, I was a part of a church that I didn't know at the time had a lot of splits in it. And if people don't know, splits are like when a church gets into it and a large number of members decide to part ways with the pastor, or a lot of people leave with the pastor because they agree with what the pastor's doing versus what the body is doing. So we had a split at this particular church, and I remember the deacon in question was real reluctant to split. And it was because he was rooted in tradition, what I found out later. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of people have their roots, like situations you talk about, they're in tradition more than they are in a actual contextual sense of walking the walk that they should be. They're walking the walk that people before them walked instead of the walk of the actual prescription of what they're supposed to be following. And this particular deacon, he didn't like that instruction because he was going through a deprogramming process of that and a reprogramming. And he was real reluctant. And I really seen something click where he went after the pastor right in the middle of Bible study and started cussing right in the middle of the church and fussing and tried to attack him. And I'm like, I'm the only other man there, and them two going at it. I'm like, I can't have this. All these other women in the church, they don't need to see this. Kids, they don't need to see this. So I had to pull him out, and he kept going after the pastor, and then his wife tried to intervene, and he pushed her. I'm not having that. And so he got dusted up right there. But the thing of it is I felt like the abuse was not the learning or the reprogramming, but the abuse in people manipulating people over a long period of time in a minimized way, to the point where a ship that sets sail from the east that's going west ends up north, because the slight trajectory of what the slight trajectory or the projection that they were going was turned a bit. And by the time you get to where you thought you should be, you're way off track. And a lot of people get way off track. Therefore, they end up abusing other people no matter wherever they go. And it's all because they didn't follow the actual prescription of what was written for that group of people to do. Which sounds like the same thing you did, was the same experience I had. That was one of the worst experiences I had. But I've been in bad body situations of the church and bad pastoral situations of a church. But it didn't change my mind about what the church is, but it did change my mind about how am I going to participate in it?
Right, because it kind of makes you feel abused. You want to get out of there. I'm like, man, I don't fit nowhere. For a long time, I was like, man, I don't fit no damn where. And so I just didn't, and then it takes a while for you to get comfortable with your own spirituality before you realize I fit just where I fit, which is inside of me. It's all in here anyway. So it took a while, but that was one of the most hurtful things for me. But I think a way to avoid that in hindsight is having the way to avoid spiritual abuse is knowing, like you said, your direction, which way your ship is sailing, and regardless of the outside influence or what the other people tell you, just make sure that you keep your ship sailing that way. And that's the way to avoid spiritual abuse, is just know where you're going, hang on to what you know, let the universal God, Jesus, whatever name you want to call it, I just know there is a power, and I know that we serve that power. And so I believe if we trust in that, then the rest will kind of fall in place. But that's easier said than done, because we live in a society where we feel like you got to have a church house, or you got to have this, you got to have that. It's pretty much kind of hard to stand alone in the walk with Christ, so to speak. But that will prevent abuse, spiritual abuse, in my opinion. Another one of the abuses I have experienced, and I just experienced this a couple of weeks ago, was friendship abuse. And what I mean by friendship abuse, you know how sometimes you have had friends for a long time, and the little smallest thing go down, and then the most biggest response happen, and you be like, man, you've been waiting to say that to me. And so once that happens, then you go back and think about other times where, okay, that might have been abuse. Like, for instance, in this particular case, saying things like, oh, I know you're not familiar with this. Or, oh, I know you've never eaten here or been there. Or, oh, I know you ain't never shopped there. Or, oh, no, you need Instagram. You don't need to do Facebook. Instagram is much better.
Probably.
Always, I'm not. Always downing who you are or I am as an existence, and I never saw it before, because it always, and the thing about abuse, you got to be able to see it, because it's always dressed up real cute, or you got to be able to smell it. So I never noticed it before till we had the big verbal fallout, and I was like, I've been getting abused by her. And so I had to cut that entire friendship off, and that friendship has been about 20 years, and it hurts to have to do that, but it's necessary. So, and I really don't have any good ways on how to avoid friendship abuse, because I'm such an open, friendly person. I try to make a new damn friend every day. So do you have any tips that you could give on how to avoid that type of abuse? Because I'm so damn friendly. I'm always making friends.
I'm not. And I still let people in sometimes. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't care if it's 20 years or 3 months, some of the worst hurt I've had was somebody I let in to my circle, you know, my 360 in a short period of time. Because when you in, it's no difference if we've been friends since we was kids or been friends from this moment forth. And there's no protection for people like us. There's other people, they can halfway do anything and everything in life. But I'm not halfway. Even when I was crooked, ain't no such thing as a halfway crook.
No, that's right.
Okay? You crooked, okay?
Right.
So there's no such recourse for certain people because our emotions are too high. When you get emotional, you get emotional, right? It's hard for them to talk you down off the mountain, anybody. And so when you like that, you invest so much. So what do you tell a person that's passionate to the point where they put their all into it? Oh, don't put your all into it? So now you want to be fake.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you to be fake, you can't tell them.
Yeah.
What you do is you say, hey, I've experienced that too. Yeah. Let's go through this hurt together. See, that's what hurt people should do, is get together and talk about how they can endure and overcome the hurt. But you're not gonna stop getting hurt, right? Because you're friendly. I'm not friendly, but even when I open up my heart is open, right? And so because of that, I'll allow, and I don't know your thoughts on this because we hadn't talked about it, but I'm asking you the same way I'm telling you about me. When my heart is open, I'm vulnerable. And so when I'm vulnerable, I used to think vulnerable meant weak. It doesn't mean that. Vulnerable means that you're open and you can't receive anything unless you're open. So if you're closed to things or closed halfway, if that door was halfway closed, I couldn't get in it. Some other people who are thin could get in it, but I'm too big to get in it. So if my heart is open, it's big enough for anybody to get in it. And I don't want to limit the possibility that somebody might come into my life and I miss it because I left the door ajar and not wide open. So
that's what I want to do, just close the door.
Everybody wants to close the door, but there's no such thing as closing the door for passionate people. When you see something hurting, you feel the hurt. I don't care if it's here, there, or over wherever. That's why I don't watch the news no more. It's too much pain and hurt. I turn on the news, watch it, something happened in the South Sudan. I see some people getting killed. I feel that. I don't want that. That's why I don't go to funerals. I don't do funerals, because I be in there, I ain't gotta even know the person. Just the mere feeling of the people in there being sad and in grief, I get to crying too. I ain't even know Robert Earl. I'm up in there like this. You know, Robert Earl dead. Robert Earl dead. I didn't even know Robert. You know, but I feel his people's pain. So I limit my interactions to be vulnerable because of that, because I know I can be. So I'm not telling anybody or you to do that, but just know the more you're around, you're gonna be susceptible. And I don't know if it gets easier. I'm 40-something years old and ain't got easier yet. But yes, I've experienced it. I don't know a solution for it. I just know it happens to the best of us.
Do you think, when you said people that feel deeply and that we open to vulnerability, do you think we're the most probable to get abused? Do you think that and abuse somehow ties hand in hand? Because everybody don't get abused. Some people, and whether you're talking about spiritual, friendship, sexual, some people just don't, because like the abuser know not to do that. Do you think that's a correlation between someone that does have a big, open, willing, vulnerable heart? Does that leave us more susceptible to abuse?
You can't play offense and defense at the same time.
Damn.
Some of us are made to be on the offense all the time. Offensive people are always moving in that direction, so it's hard for them to get. Defensive people, unfortunately, we're always on the lookout for possibility that there's a penetration of the situation. Therefore, our back becomes vulnerable. And if we're too much focused over here, something over there gets to us. Now, I'm not saying offensive like you're offensive to people or defensive. I mean it in every bit of the terms. Some of us are on the move all the time. You never take time to stop because you're always moving in a certain direction. And then there's some of us that say, okay, we're trying to see what this is doing and what this is doing. Therefore, it makes us more vulnerable. That's why you get certain people that are more susceptible to being abused than others. Then you got some people who have played defense for so long, they're like, I don't want to do this no more, so I'm going to go on the offense because I've seen all these other people do this, and they're the worst because they know how the defense defends. Therefore, their offense is so thorough that they penetrate everywhere. And those are the worst. And that's usually those people who came out of being abused heavily that become an abuser. They're the worst at being abusers. We see that all the time with young people getting abused at an early age and then becoming predators when they're older. They know what the pain is. They don't want to feel that. They want to give that pain to somebody because they don't want to feel it. And they don't want to feel it alone. Yeah, no, they ain't trying to hand it off.
Share it.
They're trying to share it.
Share it.
And they ain't trying to give it, really. They're just trying to say, you know what, I want to have somebody else share the experience I had to see how I feel about it.
Like a misery love company type?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Hell yeah. You look at people. Look at people. You can't even hang around the people that are too negative anymore if you're a person that understands your emotions. You don't even want to be around negative people. But if you don't understand your emotions, you'll keep being around people because you're trying to fit in. You're trying to be a part of something, and you don't know the whole time you're being abused until you wake up and figure out, you know what? I'm the only one that's been driving this person around all these years. They always borrowing money from me, and if I ask them for some money, they always broke, but yet got new shoes on your feet. You talking about this new ring you bought. You ain't paid me back that $75 I loaned you in '88. So there's certain people that are just more prone because you're about love and you forget all the other rules. I talked to you before and about this, about what order do you put this in? Faith and facts and feelings, or feelings, faith, and facts. What order do you put them in?
Well, if I had to be honest, I do feelings, faith, facts. I know it should be facts, faith, and feelings probably, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing about that trajectory we were talking about of how you go in that direction and then you get off track, you have to self-evaluate. People who are more vulnerable, you have to constantly self-evaluate. You got to say, am I in the position I'm supposed to be right now? If the answer is no, then what can I do from this point forward? Because every day is a new day. Right? What do I do from this point forward? Can I worry about all the messing up I've did in the past and let that be on my back and hinder me from getting to where I want to be? Or do I self-evaluate and I say, okay, I've been putting feelings before facts because I'm so wrapped up in my emotions. You're gonna have to make the hard call to say, you know, the fact is this person or these people are abusing me. It's hurting my feelings. However, my feelings tell me I need this love. because this is the kind of love I know. And then you say, okay, what about the facts? Okay, I understand it. And then you say, what does my faith say? What can I dedicate myself to? If those things are all over the place, you're going to constantly be on the road to where who knows where.
And if those facts, feelings, and faiths aren't in place, that too leads to self-abuse, doesn't it? Because they see you. The abuser sees you continually abusing your own self, which leaves a gateway for more abuses to come, more abuse to happen. I am a serious self-abuser, not only from what I put in my body, but also from some of the things I think from day to day. Like you said, I be in my feelings a lot, so I feel this and I think, oh no, Tanya, you can't do that. Or I think, oh Lord, I feel like this ain't gonna work. And so I'm continually fighting and hurting my own thought process, my own growth process. And it took me a minute to realize, damn girl, you whooping your own ass. So I'm beating myself, you know? And I am the biggest abuser of myself, and I think that is a lot of the reason why I've been able to be abused as an adult. Now, when I was a child, I think not so. I think they were just predators, monsters, just gross, horrible people. But as an adult, when I'm in charge of my own space and time and proximity, I think 90% of the abuse I have really brought on myself because they have seen me abusing myself in one form or the other.
Could be.
Do you experience self-abuse? Or have you? Or how do you deal with that?
All the time.
Do you?
All the time. And unless you ask me about it, I don't speak on it.
Yeah, right.
But the truth is, yeah, the answer to your question. And I know when I do it.
Yeah.
And I know when I'm in it. That's why I constantly self-evaluate, you know? And I try to lie myself. What I've learned is through you self-checking, I'm starting to think what they call stinking thinking. Yeah. I'm starting to think bad. When I start to think bad, here's the crazy part. I know it's gonna happen. Everything I think can happen. Yeah. If I put my thoughts into the atmosphere, knowing who the principality is that rules the atmosphere, guess what? Especially if it makes me susceptible, it's gonna happen. And so knowing that, I don't speak on big moves until the move is done. Ain't much you can get in your way about or anybody else if you speak it out. Now a lot of people say, ooh, I'm going to, what do they say? Name it and claim it?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Name it and claim it.
Name it and claim it?
The name of Jesus.
Man, they name and claim it, it's hogwash.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you why it's hogwash. The principality, even I don't care, you know, if you believe in this and that, every religion understands, if it's a religion or some kind of religious connotations, there is a didactic nature of some sort. There's this side and there's this side. And everybody should be over here, but what we gotta do is we gotta save the people from over here. Or these people over here aren't this, therefore we got this divided line. Okay, that's one thing about religion. If you understand in the didactic nature that there's two sides, that means that there leaves room to be opposition. If you realize ever that we're all in the same boat, Bill Gates, Donald Trump, Warren Buffett, whoever, all have 24 hours in a day.
Right on.
What's the dude that owned Apple, the Apple leader? What was his name? Not owned it, but the CEO of Apple that died.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Would you say that he was rich? Yeah, Apple, big company, right? He died.
Right.
Pancreatic cancer. All the money in the world couldn't save him. So they got the same opportunities that you and I got, who don't have the kind of commas in our bank account as they do.
Yeah.
And when you realize that whatever they did with their time to get there, it ended up to be monetarily productive, I got the same amount of time.
Right on.
So I focus on the fact that instead of being divided, I put everybody in the same group. So when I walk in a place, I walk with my chin up and my shoulders back. You can't tell me I don't belong in here.
Right.
I don't care if it's all redneck hillbillies.
Right.
Y'all can stop the music and stop saying nigga, because I come in there, but I belong in here. Fix my drink.
Right.
And if it ain't like Bubba's is, you and I gonna have a problem.
Right.
Up in this place. It's gonna be trouble in the land, understand?
Right.
So what I'm saying is you gotta realize that we all in the same boat.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're black, Mexican, white.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're Jew, Protestant,
Right.
Catholic, or Muslim.
Right.
Okay, whatever you want to say about it. I understand your religion. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Right on.
So you can save your title,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of titles. You know some of them I had. And people were like, oh, you know, that's brother with this, that. I'm me.
Right.
If I carry myself like that, then so be it.
Yeah.
But again, the point is, we've got to get away from being divided, even ourselves. My divided nature is the old me and who I want to be. That's my didactic nature inside me. I know my Adamic nature, but I also know my projected nature. And if I remember this, but I only use that as a memory instead of a guideline, then that stays in the past. And I'm focused on this over here. But I know I'm going down a path that sometimes isn't always used. So I've got to kind of shine my own light. So you have to be reflective of what's around you. You can't be reflective of something positive if you keep a lot of negativity close to you. And if you're the one that's negative, you've got to get out of self. And so every time I'm able to get out of self and focus on here, I take another 2, 3, 4 strides towards the mark. And you can't do that if you're constantly saying like, you know, I ain't gonna never be shit because my mama told me I wasn't gonna be shit and my daddy told me I wasn't gonna, I'm sorry, I don't know if I cuss, but I wasn't gonna be shit. No. You can't tell me what I'm gonna be. Because when I walk in the room, what? I belong here. No matter what happened, I belong here. Is there some rooms I don't want to go in? Oh, absolutely. I don't want to be in there. But I can go anywhere I want to. I can be anything I want to. And so if we constantly abuse self, we can't even be the catalyst for ourselves to get out of situations where other people are abusing us. That's all I'm saying.
Agree. Damn well put. Damn well put. If we don't get out of abusing ourselves, we are definitely being put in a position for other people to abuse.
Even temporarily. And I'm not saying you're gonna do it all the time, but like I said, when I do get in it, when you get in that mode, you do it. When you get in that mode, ain't really much anybody can say that can stop it. Because you in it. Yeah.
Facts. Okay, we talking. Thank you for that, Branden. We got to quit abusing ourselves. Talking to myself, saying that.
Yeah, you got to.
Yeah, I'm working on it. It's just I've been doing it for so long, you know. And another thing I've noticed about abuse, whether to myself or just in general, is so habit forming. It's so habit forming, abuse is. And you will pick up that habit before you know it. Like for instance, I'm gonna
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
From what you just said, do you think your parents or your grandparents experienced some of the same things you have?
Yep.
Okay, now, when you cook for your children and your husband, do you cook some of the same things that your mama cooked?
Yeah, some of them, yeah.
My eye felt like I was. That is the problem.
Okay, elaborate.
Based on what you just said about how you just habits.
Yeah.
And what I had to learn was my high blood pressure, my diabetes, and my, what do they call it, hyper cholesterol. Yeah. It's not because my mama and my daddy had it. It's because I did what my mama and daddy did. And they did what their mama and daddy did. Ain't none of that stuff hereditary. Yeah. If I change what I'm doing, like when I change my eating lifestyle, I'm trying to change the trajectory. Because I learned that I don't have to be what the worst of my predecessors were. I can set a whole new trajectory, starting from this point forward. So it's not self-denial, it's denial of self. So you got to get out of that self-denial. Well, I'm going to do this because, but you start saying denial of self, I'm going to do this for.
Change it up.
Yeah, it's all about what how you talk to yourself.
You say it to yourself.
Yeah, I don't say, this is what I'm not going to do. So like, for instance, I don't go around saying I'm not going to eat meat. Yeah. I go around saying I'm going to eat vegetables and fruit.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Affirming.
Always.
Always affirming.
Never speaking in a negative tone about what you're not going to do. Or somebody asks you, this is a common question with women and men in relationships. Especially single people. What kind of man do you want? Well, I don't want a man who does this. Guess what them people end up with?
That tickled me. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
They don't say, I want a man that does this, this, and this. Right. They always give you your list of what they don't want. Right. Oh, I don't want nobody that does that. Oh, I don't want no fat man. Oh, I don't want no skinny man. I don't want no man with gap teeth. I don't want no man with, everybody got their thing about what they don't want, but they ain't never put in the atmosphere what they do want. And for yourself, you gotta say, you know what I want? I want to be impactful in my community. That's all I ever tell myself. I want to be impactful in my community.
Right. And I've been saying, I've been chanting like a mantra probably the last year, I'm not accepting no more abuse in no type of form. I'm not even taking it from the checkout lady. You heard me?
Now you do
I ain't taking no more abuse, man.
You realize you putting that in the atmosphere. That's negative.
Okay, so this, I got you. So I should say,
any more abuse.
I should say, no more abuse will be happening to me.
No,
I still didn't say it right. Tell me how I should say. Okay, wait, no, let me go.
I don't want nothing but positive vibes in my life.
Nothing but positive vibes.
Yeah.
Well, it seems so. Okay, I got you.
You see what I'm saying? If you putting the negative in there, you still putting the negative. You're saying what you don't want instead of saying what you do want. Right. Do you think the universal God knows what you don't need?
Yes.
Do you think the universal God knows what you need?
Yes.
So when they say you have not because you ask not, you keep asking to not be in a situation.
Okay.
Why don't you ask the situation you want to be in?
Right. Okay.
So yeah, you
positive vibes only.
Positive vibes only.
Dead. It's over with.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So
I don't say I don't want negative people around me. No. I say all I want is positive people around me. Right. Yeah. Right. And guess what'll happen? Eventually, the negative people they'll find their way out of your life.
They all getting away from me.
All you gotta do is keep speaking it. They're gonna find their way out. And you ain't gotta do anything. Right. Just keep speaking it. I don't want I just want positive people. Right. I'm just gonna bring positive vibes. How you feeling? I'm feeling really good. Some stuff happened, but from right now, everything that happened right now is gonna be good.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And that's a good like you said, just a life tip for anybody that's dealing with any type of abuse. Affirm yourself out of the situation. Just affirm yourself out of it. Just keep doing that. And eventually, like you said, the universal God, it will fall away.
I want to be in a relationship where somebody loves me the way I want to be loved and speaks my love language. I don't want to be in an abusive relationship with somebody who doesn't love me. There's two different connotations.
Sad, even in octave level, it sounded sad.
It sounds sad, don't it?
Sad.
But when you say, ooh, I want to be around somebody who loves me the way I want to be loved and speaks my love language.
Right.
Whoo!
Right. Sorry, no Hurston. Right.
It makes my emotion rise.
Right on, right on. Okay, well, what I've figured out then, just from talking to you, that I've kind of Legoed this abuse, because for all the years that I've been self-abusing myself, I have not been creating the affirmations which have allowed me to be put in positions to be abused in the church or in spiritually abused. And because I felt so hurt flying out the church thinking I didn't have nobody, flew into the arms of whom I thought were friends and suffered more abuse. So this conversation done really helped me. It really did, Guru, because I need to do more affirmations. And now I can see how I got in. I was just thinking this week, I don't know how in the hell I've lined myself up for this much abuse. And now I can see it a little bit more. So if we had to, let me do one more thing. How do we identify abusers? How do we identify? Because one of the things about when you are being abused, a lot of people do not realize that. Do you know that? They don't realize that they are being abused. Like I said, in the friendship, I didn't realize that I was being abused until something big happened. Now, of course, we know when you get physical abuse, that's obvious. You're getting abused. Or mental abuse can sometimes be obvious.
How is physical obvious?
Well, you know you done got punched in your eye.
Sometimes people like that.
Huh?
You didn't know people get in relationships and they hit on one another and beat each other's ass, and then they like to make up.
Yeah, And I had a niece that said if he don't hit me, he love me. So you're right.
And they like to make up.
Yeah. Facts. They do love the makeup.
I don't get down like that, but yeah, that's what I mean. It happens. You know, I was a mental health professional for a long time. I've seen the situation. They beat each other's ass, and then they make a baby.
Right.
Got 7 kids.
8. Right on.
So yeah, but anyway, like you said physical abuse. How do you know? How do you identify?
Yeah, the abuser.
I think it's different for everybody. I don't know, because so many people have a weird dynamic of how they got to be where they are. And I learned something that they try to, when you study psychology and social work and sociology and psychiatry, which is what I went to school for, you learn all these things in textbook and things like that, and you say, okay, I'm trying to categorize something, because you're trying to diagnose it so that you can treat the symptoms. And that's one of the problems too, is we keep treating the symptoms and we're never really finding a solution. And that's why I like psychology more than I do psychiatry, because psychiatry says, I'm gonna give you this pill for this. Psychology says, okay, let's unravel all of this, undo this, ball of yarn and get down to the core, and then we're gonna wrap it back around again and we'll know each layer. Everybody is different. Therefore, if you don't understand you're being abused, then you have to find someone that you trust and get their opinion. It's people you trust. Always for me, it's been people I trust that tell me more about a situation when I'm clouded by either myself or the people or persons that I'm in with. Do you think I knew when I was in the abusive church situation that I was being abused by those people, all those particular people trying to manipulate me? I didn't know until other people said, hey, be careful, bro. That person got a thing. And I start asking the questions, doing a motivational interviewing about situations. Just like you said before about how the people that claim to be your friends will say things like, oh, I know you probably ain't gonna wanna go. You ain't gonna wanna you ain't gonna like this. Right. How you know I ain't gonna like it? Right. Yeah, we friends for a long time, but I'm ever evolving. Right. I might try it. Right. You have to get around people you trust. And every now and again and say, hey, look, hey, what do you think about my situation? What is your opinion? You on the outside looking in. And people, if you trust them and you know they're honest, they'll tell you. You got a lot of people around you that love you enough that if you ever ask them, what do they think about your situation, they'll tell you. Now, a lot of people may not, because they know that you might not accept what the truth is for them for you, but people you trust and that love you, they'll tell you the truth. So that's the only way for some people. And then the other ones, like you said, it comes blatantly obvious that, when you read the textbook, the terminology for abuse is there. And you got to throw in not only abuse, you got to use the term misuse. Because some people are misused. Yeah. Yeah. We used to say substance abuse. Remember that? For drugs, crack addicts, we used to say they were substance abusers. Now the new way to say it is they're substance misusers. Really? Because they're not abusing it, they love the way it feels. The meth, the crack, the whatever, the alcohol, they don't feel like they're abusing it. Right. But are you misusing it? Okay. All right. So you've got to add to it, am I being abused and or misused? Right on. That's about it. I mean, you got to start there, and then I guess you go from there. Start there, and then we go from there. Yeah. Okay, so hurt people, and healed people can help to heal other people. You have to get around people that you trust. Talk to those people about what your situation is like on whatever topic of abuse it is. If you got somebody in your life that you trust, talk to them. Ask them in their opinion if they think that you're being abused. Abuse is not something that we have to accept. It's not a place where we got to stay. And just like we just heard Guru say, abuse can be squashed out, starting with the affirmation of ourselves. So if we affirm ourselves to ourselves every day, the best, I want only positive things around me, the universal God, or whatever name we want to put it up under, will make sure that those things fall away. So it seems to me, just from speaking, that abuse we've put more into that monster than actually what it is. Like we've made it a mountain when it's really a molehill. And if we have our mentality to the point where it is affirmation, then you won't be looking for something that's inside of yourself already in a church, in a spouse, in a friend, in finances, in whatever. So if we are all a people of hurt people, but just like Guru said, if we practice to heal, that we can be a people of healed people who help to heal other people. Guru, I appreciate you coming, man. It's been my honor. You know I love you, bro. You be tripping me out, man. So yeah, Guru, tell them a little bit about yourself, where they can find you and what you do and how you do. Because he do everything. I do a few things. You can always find me on social media, Facebook at Gumbo Talk. How about that one? At Gumbo Talk. On Instagram at Ukul Rashidi. You can also take a look at Twitter at Ukul Rashidi, and what's the other one they got? I do that Snapchat, but I don't know how to Snapchat. Did you say your Instagram one? Yeah, Instagram is Ukul Rashidi, UKUURASHIDI. And then, you can always, website, BrandenDJohnson.com, coming soon. I got to figure out all the content I'm going to put on there. But mainly, all you got to do is ask and Google, and you can find me. But the main thing I want people to know is that you've got to speak positively to yourself and then the people around you. Yeah, some things people aren't want to hear because they're real, and they may feel that you're being pessimistic or negative, but in actuality, you're being positive and realistic because you're speaking honestly. And when everybody begins to speak from their heart, then guess what? We don't have anything to hide. And those that have things to hide, they want to keep things in closets, they want to keep things in the pocket, are going to always be the ones that will be on the offense because they don't want you to ever see what's going on in their life. I've suffered every type of abuse you've mentioned, every single one of them. And I know from a very early age how they feel, but they don't define you and they don't define me. It's my future that defines me. So your past is just that. Where you're at is your present, and where you're going is hopefully the place that you want to be.
Right on. Straight out the mouth of the Gap Tooth Guru. This is Storytelling with the Storyteller, presented by Active. Remember, if someone is abusing you or misusing you, affirm things different in your life. We'll catch y'all next time. And remember, somebody loves you, baby, and you know that it's me. Welcome to the takeover. Hoorah.